Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, I'm here with my buddy, Mike Singletary. We're going to be talking about quality of your business and consistency in your business over quantity. Sometimes as real estate investors, we're cheap. We do a bunch of stuff on the cheap. We do it quick and dirty, but it's not always best. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Mike? How you doing, man?
Good to see you. Good to see you. Mike and I have been friends for a long time. In fact, we just talked for like 50 minutes before we started the recording here. So that's honestly, part of the reason I do the show, I do my podcast, is I like to, it's a way for me to hang out with my friends, you know?
Yeah. I wish we recorded some of that stuff. I think we
I know. Yeah. You kind of joked like, hey, we could be done with the podcast. We should have just recorded our conversation, but it probably would have been, we had to put a bunch of bleeps in there probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna apologize in advance, right? Just in case.
Yeah. So, I know you and I were in agreement here that a lot of real estate investors do stuff cheap, or, I told you I get text messages for houses I haven't even owned for years. It was like, are people selling this list? Are people not refreshing their list? Or are they just using outdated stuff because it seems cheap?
Yeah.
But the truth is in reality, it's expensive because you're wasting your time doing stuff that's unproductive, right? So we're going to jump through a bunch of that today. And I think hopefully it's a little bit of a wake-up call for some investors. We're going to probably say some things and they're going to be like, oh, crap, I do that. Right? Which we all do, but yeah,
Part of our DNA, man. You know what I mean? We're always looking for something cheaper. That's right. So.
Yep. But hey, before we jump in, you and I have been friends for a long time. When did we meet? We probably met like 2010 or so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the exact year, but yeah, it's been a while.
It was a glorious day, from what I recall. I mean,
probably the best day of your life.
Best day of my life. Yeah, don't tell my wife that, or my son. But no, we've been friends for a long time. You're a member of Investor Fuel. I'm excited to talk about this today. For those that don't know you, maybe tell us your background a little bit, how you got into real estate investing.
Yeah, I was in a totally different industry about 7 years ago, and I remember it's one of the things I could connect with investors a lot because I remember still exactly what it was like to be brand new. So we started about 7 years ago. I was in a different system, and then we left that system about 4 years ago. And, now we have a investment business in Central Texas. We buy houses from Waco all the way down to San Antonio, and I'm a founder of Skip Force, which is the tracing service that we provide. We try to provide the best value for investors around the country.
Yep. And talk about, so you were a hairstylist before, right?
I wasn't going to bring that up, but yeah. I'm actually.
Are you a salon owner? Yeah. And I'm not here to judge.
Yeah. No. So yeah, it's part of my story. So I owned high-end hair salons in Houston, Texas. So it's a totally different gig. It was real artistic. I think in my heart, I'm an artistic guy, right? But going from that, where you're around women all the time, which by the way is a way better gender than
yeah, hanging out with a bunch of like dirty contractors and stuff now. And these weren't just women. I mean, you were doing stuff. I mean, you were some pretty high end stuff, working with models and stuff too, right?
It was a lot of fun, But I'm quite honestly, looking back now, I was nowhere near the marketer that I should have been. And that's what real estate has really done for me, right? I mean, It's really been showing me how to market. And we talked about this quite a bit. A lot of brick and mortars don't understand the marketing game. And that's eventually. I mean, 2 years ago, I didn't even know what skip tracing was. Now I own a skip tracing company, right? So that's what real estate does. I mean, it just opens your mind when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit ahead of time, but I think that real estate investors are, because of necessity, are more savvy marketers than the average small business. Like you said, if you own a hair salon or a restaurant or something like that, a lot of your marketing is based on location. It's just your physical location is a big part of your marketing. It's just, I paid more money to be on the corner of Main and Main, and people drive by, and that's my main source of marketing for us. We got to get scrappy. We got to find ways to get people to contact us, right? Usually. Yeah. So I know we're talking about kind of quality and consistency in our business over just quantity and being busy and doing stuff. And like, we're going to jump into a number of different areas, but first let's start with deals. Like, one of the things that happens is you hear a lot of real estate investors talk about their deal flow. Like, I'm trying to do 40 deals this year, or 100 deals, or whatever it is. And we all know that you can't put deals in the bank, right? So a lot of real estate investors end up doing deal flow, but some of that deal flow is crap, right? And it's just a big waste of time and your resources ultimately. So maybe kind of share your thoughts on the importance of focusing on quality there versus quantity.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been 100% guilty of this, right? So again, I got a big ego, like most people in the industry. We want to do things really well. And I remember that, hey, I always want to do more houses, because that's how we define success in this one. How many houses have we purchased, right?
Yeah.
And so you built a big team. You have to go through this whole process. You're not really vetting as well. And so it was a lot of stress. For me personally, I can't talk about it. It was a lot of stress, right? And so then now I had to really have a conversation on what I wanted, exactly what I wanted. And we do less deal flow. The margins are better, obviously, and the net's better, and without all the stress that's involved with it. So I think laser focusing on what you really want and what you want to target on, I think that just, like anything else, anything you focus on expands, right?
Yep. Yeah. And anybody I know, most people that I know that focus too much on volume, what happens is they start to convince themselves that in order to compete, I need to pay more. And, I know you and I are cut from the same cloth. Like, we're from the let's buy them deep club, right? So like, I would rather, if I've probably passed on thousands of marginal deals because it just wasn't deep enough, right? Yeah. But every once in a while, you're like, man, we got to get another deal. And you do one, you're like, oh, we never should have done this deal. Or, we've all done that. But what I know from the people that start to convince themselves that in order for me to compete, I need to pay more, is even if they bought some deep and they like overpay for some, ultimately because if you have a team, like an acquisitions team, you start to train them and set that precedent that, like, do whatever it takes to get a deal. Mm-hmm. And what happens is you start overpaying for everything. And this is really a game of base hits, but I think what we thrive from is the ability that every once in a while we hit a home run, right? Yeah. And so if you start to convince yourself that, it's all about, singles, then you effectively will never hit a home run, right?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, I think you're absolutely right. I think ultimately in our industry, home runs kind of fall in your lap if you're doing enough marketing, right? That's just going to happen, Right. But your overhead, it's just the cost of actually doing a deal. If you're doing that type of volume, and the team, like I said, going back to the team aspect, man, that costs a lot of money, and managing people and, all this other stuff. So really, I'm not knocking any of that as far as, like, man, I know a lot of people that have big operations and they are free, like the freedom that we all seek. Right. But I think it was truthful. I think most people are caught in that grinder, and they don't feel the freedom. We get stuck. And just like, I think you've said this many, many times, right? We leave a job to become a prisoner of our own business. Paraphrasing to a certain degree, right? So how do we get transition out of that? That's the tough part. And I think just being laser focused on what your model really is the key,
Yep. Awesome. So let's talk about kind of quality over quantity, or over kind of being cheap with people, right? And so I think we're all guilty of, this industry is just a ton of people that hire VAs. Now, by the way, we have about 20 VAs on our team. So I'm not against virtual assistants at all, but I think what's happened is with text message marketing and some other things, like sometimes people outsource things to virtual assistants in the name of being, frugal. But they're just not, like, what's the opportunity cost of doing that wrong, right? And so, sometimes people try to hire somebody that's cheap. Even with VAs, there's a big difference between a $3 an hour VA and an $8 an hour VA. Huge difference in quality usually, right? Yeah. And so we have some tasks that are just critical, from marketing to a lot of things in this business. And sometimes people just outsource it to somebody that's just not equipped to do that in the effort to save money, but it ends up costing them a lot more in the end. Would you agree with that?
100% agree. Opportunity cost is big, right? So whenever you're talking about ISAs, VAs, so I have 7 VAs on my team, and about 4 of them has been with me for over 3 years. One's been with me the whole time. She's really now my operations manager. She's just fantastic, but she wasn't that at first, right? We put a lot of time and effort, and also she has that mindset of wanting to improve, wanting to grow. So she's really grown into the role. And
Yeah.
so going back to what you were saying, 100%, but it really has to do with how much training are you going to put forth? A lot of the mistakes that we make as investors, and I'm guilty of this too when I first started, I'm hiring them. I'm going to train them for about a couple of days and I'm going to throw them on the dollar and go, hey man, why am I not getting leads? Right. And so that's the key. You got to put a lot of time and effort into your people. And also, it depends what your business model is. You pay what you get for with people. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, I'm not just going to give people a lot of money at the beginning because I made that mistake as well.
Yeah,
I'm
for
like,
sure.
oh, wow, you look great. I'm going to pay you this. You're going to be fantastic. That doesn't work. I think people just have to prove themselves and have to be specific in that role. And then to me, in my business, it's worked better when they grew into another role.
Yeah. 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 So people is an important one. And you mentioned training too. And you're right. Like it's so easy to just like, say, well, they'll figure it out. Right. And a lot of times you have to have this constant training, constant development of people and be committed to that. So it's kind of like, if somebody buys a swimming pool and they're like, yeah, I'm going to spend all my money on the swimming pool, but then they don't have the money to maintain it or they don't make the effort to maintain it. Then the pool looks like shit. And they're just like, this thing sucks. I don't ever even want to use it. It's so gross. And you're like, well, there's this kind of saying of like, if you can't afford to buy it twice, like you can't afford it. Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
For people, that's the cost of the person, but it's also the cost and the effort that goes into the training of making sure that person can be productive for you. And as you know, this is a maturity thing for us because I used to I cared more about production than I did. This is gonna sound bad, but of their like happiness necessarily. And what I found out with people is that especially VAs, especially when you're virtual and that you can't see them, you're just like out of sight, out of mind sometimes, and you kind of forget sometimes that like they want to be fulfilled too. They want to do a good job. They want to be developed. They want to get more responsibility. And if they can take on those things, of course, you're happy to pay them more money too, right? So that quality training is definitely a key.
Well, you're never going to get where you want to be in your business without people, right? I mean, that's impossible unless you just want to do a one-man show type of thing. You don't really have a business, right? You're just, you're doing yours, and whenever you're not there, there's no money coming in. So I am a huge believer in, and one of my unique abilities is the ability to know when to press the gas and when to press the brakes. So, and I think that's important, right? People want accountability, but you have to understand who they are. I think that's a key too. Like what really drives them? Because some people you think that, hey, I'm driven by money. Everybody's driven by money, and some people aren't like that, right?
Right.
I know a lot of people in our industry use Philippine VAs because that's the cheapest, or whatever the case is. You get them for $3, $5, whatever. But you have to also understand what their temperament is, right? I mean, they're not, and I'm not knocking anything about Philippine VAs. Like I said, I have people that I admire and I trust, but their innate disposition is I need to know every single step. Like I got to know step 1, step 1B, step 2, you know what I mean? And if you don't have that in place and you're asking them to, objectively come up with something, I think that, you're just setting them up for failure more times than not.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of that too. We used to have, I just kind of said, well, this is your job. Just do that piece. And after many years, I kind of realized like, hey, we need to have like town hall meetings, bring people together so they understand how their piece is in the greater context of the overall business. And they even start to ask like, well, how can you help this person? Or, what do you wish they knew about what you do? And it just makes everything stronger. This sounds so intuitive, right? But for a long time, it was just easy, especially I think with VAs, because they're out of sight, out of mind. I'm paying them. It looks like they're doing what they're supposed to do. And we just kind of let people run for a while. But the truth is it's real easy for them to either be a lot less productive than you thought, unfulfilled, and certainly, off the reservation even maybe.
Absolutely, man. I mean, how we counter that, I mean, we've grown into that as well because we used to have an office and now we're all virtual. Like everybody has to have hub staff. Like I just hired somebody for an operation manager's role. She's actually state-based and she's not used to, being monitored in that way. And I'm like, that's just a stipulation for hire, right? So when there's accountability there, obviously people want to perform a little bit better. And also we have daily huddles. Like we literally meet every single day in the morning. I have 2 different businesses. I meet one at 9 and the other one 9:30 every single day. Then we both obviously have our L10s and stuff like that too. So those are really, really important because if you're not on top of them, they don't feel like they're being watched and they're virtual. I mean, you're going to get stack off. That's how it is.
Yeah. We've had some stuff happen that I can't even say it online. Just some crazy stuff for sure. Let's just say including the porn industry. I'll leave it at that. So crazy.
The offline
Crazy.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, um, so let's talk a little bit about kind of marketing and automation stuff. So I know a lot of real estate investors have made some huge strides in automation, let's say over the past few years, systems that automate. When I first started, I came from a technology company, an online retailer. And when I came into real estate, I was like, there were, this is '08 for me, but there were no CRMs for real estate investors. Like we use HighRise, which is like a contact. In fact, we used Excel for a long time. Then we went to HighRise, which doesn't really even exist anymore, which is just a basic kind of contact manager.
Yeah.
And we bounced around to a whole bunch of stuff, but the technology is changed dramatically, certainly over the last 5 or 6 years. But what's happened is a lot of real estate investors set up some automation. Sometimes it just kind of comes with the system they bought, but it doesn't feel natural, right? So you end up getting text messages that are robotic or RVMs that just messages are saying the wrong name. Like automation can go bad too. And the intent is for it to always feel natural. And so I know you were telling me about, an experience with automation where you sold somebody you were interested in, they hung up and then sent you like an RVM or something. It's just automation can go wrong, right? In this industry.
I just think that, in our quest to simplify or get ourselves out of it, we miss a lot of steps that are key, which is you got to pay attention to what's going on, right? You got to connect, right? So technology is great, but man, I know some of the biggest investors, and they still run their stuff off an Excel spreadsheet to a certain degree, and they're still buying a lot because they're really focused on the interaction, the sales, the train, you know what I mean? That stuff like that. But yeah, man, I mean, with that particular experience was so crazy. I got a call because every time I get a call, I want to know, I appreciate the sales process. So I want to know what that process looks like.
You're a student of the process. I'm always learning too. Yeah.
I mean, somebody else even mentioned it, and I did the exact same thing. I mean, I remember one time I bought an extermination package. I didn't even need it. I already had one, but I was so impressed with that particular person, right? And of course, I tried to hire them. They didn't want to. But going back to this particular person, they called me, and I was like, yeah, I'm interested in selling a home. They automatically hung up, and then RBM hit right afterwards. And I'm like, that is the most bizarre sequence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that we all get into that, man. We all like have these drips or have these whatever. And if you ever listen to your ISA, which is the inside sales agent, if you don't know, and you hear somebody talking, they're going into like a pain question, and all of a sudden your ISA goes, how many bedrooms and baths? You know what I mean? Like they're so like, they're not trained well enough.
So focused on the script or filling out a form.
Right, the process, but you still have to be able to think it through that we're dealing with human beings, and we got to be able to have that human touch, one way or another.
Yep. Yeah, there's a balance. And I was telling you the example too of, we get it as real estate investors, probably a lot of us get a lot of postcards because they're trying to buy my rental properties, my portfolio. And every once in a while I get these postcards. I'm like, who the hell came up with this idea? It was usually it's something of a shortcut though. They didn't get printed on the back. It's like that would have cost you a fraction of a penny to print on the other side. But in the name of saving a fraction of a penny, you lost 50% of your opportunity to share a message. Right. And, I know what happens is just real estate investors that are like, what is the cheapest thing you got? So just, or I've told you, there's people that are marketing to me and probably you and a lot of us that are for houses I haven't even owned for years. And it's because they are using, outdated data, or they didn't update it. And they're like, well, I don't want to pay for the list again, as if the list is the static thing. Mm-hmm. They're like, just keep mailing to it. What's the cost of mailing to people that don't even own houses anymore? It's like it's so wasteful, but in their mind, they're trying to save money by just using an old list or outdated data or cheap data. But the reality is it's not even the money they wasted by marketing to somebody. It's that they couldn't reapply that money to somebody that actually would sell their house to them, right? Like saving $1,000 on marketing might have cost you $20,000 for the house you didn't get because you wasted it marketing it to somebody that was never going to sell to you, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, the difference between good to great is details, right? So, I mean, a lot of us, especially if we're I know I'm high D, I'm off the charts on the D side, you know what I mean? Details, this is my forte. I have to surround myself with people that are like that. But going back to the list, you're absolutely right. I mean, because within Skipforce, within our data, that is the number one thing that we see that really kind of trips people up. They give us a list that's not formatted correctly. They give us an older list, stuff like that. And they're just trying to recycle, just like you said, things in and opportunity cost, man. Opportunity cost is huge. You don't even know what that is, truthfully, right? So yeah, I agree.
Yep. Awesome. And I think, even in this age of like, I'm going to learn what I need to know in a free Facebook group, right?
Yeah.
There's so much misinformation out there. And sometimes it's people like, why would you pay for coaching or be around mentors or things like that? I can just get what I want in this forum or in a free Facebook group. And I mean, I know I'm not alone with seeing information that's posted in some of these groups that are like, oh my God, like that is the worst advice I've ever heard. And people are like, oh, this is awesome. Thanks for sharing. I'm going to go do that. And like, it's just bad advice, right? So it's in the name of saving money on finding out the right way to do it. Is just somebody told me what to do and I checked the box.
I mean, I get that all the time. Ironic that we're talking about this because I'm a big believer in coaches. Every other industry has a coach, every whatever. And for whatever reason, we're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies a lot in this industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, there's nothing like surrounding yourself with high quality people. I mean, we just naturally gravitate to that level. It's just a human nature. I mean, and I was just having a conversation yesterday with somebody that's extremely high, way higher than I ever am right now. And I'm striving to be, right. And they're just giving me nuggets that, man, oh my God, that's going to save me tens of thousands of dollars. And it was just a common thing for them. I mean, it was just nothing for them to say it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's so powerful, right? Or being a part of groups. I mean, obviously, I'm a part of your mastermind, and we talked about this a little earlier, where just being a part of those relationships has really propelled my thinking, and you can't help it. You just can't.
Right. Yeah. Would you mind? You've been a member of Investor Fuel from almost the very beginning, right? Were you at the very first meeting?
You should know that. I'm a day.
You were there day one. We call you OG. So it's, by the way, we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary. So certainly appreciate you being a part of it from the beginning, Mike. Would you mind sharing just how Investor Fuel has kind of helped you in your business, or maybe even helped you in your personal life?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, just kind of touching back on what I was saying before. When I got into Investor Fuel, I was coming out of another system that took the marketing layer out of my hands. I was a complete fish out of water, right? And so just being able to be connected with a certain type of people in a certain level was huge. And I felt totally uncomfortable, man. I felt inadequate. I felt, all this other stuff, which I still feel all the time. Don't get me wrong, which is great. Like I'm in other groups now where I'm like, I don't even understand what the hell they're talking about. And I love it, because I know that, hey, just give me some time, I'll get there. So I think that the power of a mastermind for my particular business, I would never be where I am right now, Mike. I'm not saying this because I'm on your podcast. I'm saying this because it is the truth. The ability to exchange information with people, members, and even some people that are not a part of the group anymore, you know what I mean? They're in and out or stuff like that. But with the members, it's just invaluable to me. It's been fantastic. So I appreciate that. I'm going to honor you on that one, man. I appreciate you for putting that together. You and Stinson.
Awesome. Glad you're a part of it, buddy.
Yeah.
So, hey, Mike, so you obviously run a data company for helping people with skip tracing. They want to text message or cold call. You're a real estate investor, Central Texas. If folks want to learn more about you, Skipforce, any of those things, where can they go? Give us some links.
Yeah, absolutely. So ironically, we're talking about, pricing and stuff like that. At Skipforce, we're doing this media blitz right now. We're giving 5-cent pricing for top tier data, which is really unheard of. So we're really kind of fighting that wave, like how good it could possibly be at 5 cents, but that's only going to be there for 2 months because we're making a splash. So you can visit us at skipforce.com to find out a little bit more about that. We got to put 2 more months of that, and then it's going to go back up to more standard pricing. Michael Singletary on Facebook, man, love to connect with anybody. I mean, most of my day, quite honestly, you would think that 80% of my day is on Skipforce. You would think that I'm talking about skip tracing and data and all that stuff, but truthfully, I'm really connecting with people on how they operate their business, and I just, man, that's my jam. I love it. So reach out. Love to talk to you.
Awesome. We'll add some links down in the notes here for everybody to check you out. So, well, Mike, thanks for joining me today.
I appreciate you, Mike.
Good to see you, buddy. Hope you guys got some good value today. The truth is don't get hung up on units. Don't get hung up on always on quantity, right? A lot of what we do is quality. You can't put units in the bank, as I like to say. So those deals that you're wasting your time and resources on that aren't going to make you a lot of money, you could have been spending that time on something else. God forbid, enjoying your life more, right? Even so. But appreciate you guys for joining us on another episode. If you haven't yet subscribed on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening right now, you can access all of our shows up to date. And of course, you can find them all on investorfuel.com. Our next event is coming up very quickly, actually. So if you haven't yet talked to us about Investor Fuel and how it might change your life and change your business in a significant way, I'd invite you to go to investorfuel.com. You can kind of apply, basically means schedule a call with us to ask some questions back and forth, see if we're fit for one another. And I'd love for you to do that if it makes sense for you. Appreciate you all. See you on the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.